You are now listening to K-Res Radio. Hey friends, Justin here, and welcome to the third installment. I couldn't even figure out how many fingers to put up. The third installment of the Long Story Short podcast, where I talk about films that were very formative to my life, and really none more so than the 1998 film Smoke Signals. It stars Adam Beach, Evan Adams, Irene Bedford, Gary Farmer, Tantu Cardinal, Cody Lightning, Simon Baker, Monique Mojica, and on and on. I posted a review a year or two ago about this film and didn't, really go through a lot of the actors, but these are incredible actors. The story was so nuanced and complex. It takes several watches to get an understanding of this film. Every time I watch it at different points and different ages of my life, it is a completely new story. The last time I watched it and heard the opening monologue, I realized, my God, this is an art house film. Just, the same way that I love these A24 films. This is spiritual. This is really trying to tell the story of America, and I never forgot the film. As a 12-year-old, I just saw really cool people with long hair that, seemed to be living a bohemian lifestyle that was so different from what I had growing up in Detroit, Michigan. And when I turned 18, my dream was to move to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I had an old-fashioned map. I'm 11 and 12 years old. And when I was 18, I was going to go to the West and try to live more freely, When I saw Sister driving down, and this is really important, when I saw Sister driving down the street backwards in her car, it was such a funny scene, but it set off my brain in so many ways, and I want to tell you why. When I saw that, I realized that, that's the life that I'm living in Detroit. Our cars are busted too. We've got dogs running around the neighborhoods, the reservation dogs. If a car works, we would have sat on a tire if it would have gotten us to the store. The leftovers of American society. I realized watching it in that moment, we're one and the same. I look at my skin and I look at the characters and we're one and the same. I already knew at 11 years old, looking at Mexican culture and the Aztec culture and their arts and their patterns, and looking at, Navajo culture, I had already drawn the conclusion that, we are one and the same. And then watching that scene made me realize, all black and brown people live on reservations. We all live in ghettos. We are all living the same American experience. And it was so eye-opening to me to realize that we are really one people that are choosing to see such separation. And, even between those that stay and those that leave, we find a way to draw lines and separate ourselves when we are all living this beautiful common existence. And at 11 or 12 years old, that was a revolution for me, in terms of this American experience. And I was able to look at myself, the community that I lived in, the attitudes that I was coming up against, and with empathy and to understand why folks sometimes have backwards personalities when they come from marginalized communities. But here we are 5 minutes into the review and haven't even given you a synopsis of the film. So Gary Farmer Arnold saves Thomas in a 4th of July fire when they are children. he grows up seeing Arnold as a hero and a father figure and a warrior. And Adam Beach, Victor, Arnold's son, only sees his dad's drunkenness, his absence, his desire to escape. He's not able to empathize with the human being that is his father. And both Thomas and Victor grow up in such divergent ways. Thomas kind of able to access his emotions and able to access gratitude because he was saved. Victor grows up with kind of a traditional chip on his shoulder and portrays this macho warrior persona that we ultimately come to realize towards the end of the movie is unsustainable. When Arnold dies, they set off both for Arizona, as his sons, to close the loop, to figure out their relationship to this complicated man and to try to find closure. They grow up, Thomas and Victor, as frenemies, for lack of a better word. They are close, they are bonded by life and culture and so many things, but they could not be further apart in the way that they think and process the world. And through the film, they learn so much from each other. And we learn so much from these two different examples of how to be indigenous in this country. My personality, guys, was formed from watching Thomas in Smoke Signals. A person that knows the truth, but is not embittered by it. I love I love all communities, I am aware of my experience and my place in this country, but I'm also, not embittered and not embattled by the things that I cannot directly change. And I attribute that so much to watching Thomas and watching his freedom, in emotion as a young person who was reckoning with, machoism, living in the city of Detroit, and all of these examples of what a man was and what they weren't. And my own life and experience, clashing with a lot of these ideas. When I watched Thomas and Victor and their, relationship with Arnold, I said, this is my life. These are the things that I'm wrestling with. I realized that Detroit was a reservation. I defy folks to find a place that fits the definition, more than Detroit. Half the city doesn't have lights or city services. More than 50% of the residents of the city of Detroit are illiterate. They cannot do for themselves. And I grew up where information was just power for me. And my ideas were constantly clashing with the people around me. And I had to wrestle with the ideas of staying or going. Can I do more good here? Or can I do some good by going out into the world, learning more, and maybe translating some of those ideas to the people that I care about? And I chose the latter. There are many examples of people that, stuck around in the city of Detroit and have done, great things. But I chose to leave and to get an education. And, I have personally, I bought a house. I have a data science career. There's so many things that I would never have done had I, stayed in the city of Detroit. And I attribute that fire to get out and to get to the West to seeing this movie at 11 or 12 years old. It's just a beautiful film. Gary Farmer, to me, is my favorite American actor. Angelina Jolie is my favorite actress. Gary Farmer is my favorite actor. The only regret I have about Gary Farmer is that he's not at this point 20 years younger, and that I don't have a say in the films, that are greenlit in Hollywood. For a time, when Hollywood was getting it right and casting him in big budget films, to see someone that felt like family, that felt like a good person in these large roles was important to me. Do you guys understand that? When you look up and you see a man like Gary Farmer and you trust in the stories that he's telling, and you can trust in his desire to do good and tell stories about his own people. For a while, I felt like, especially after Smoke Signals, for a couple of years, or a year or two, really, they were getting it right. And I just wish that he had just been in so many more films throughout the years because of how great a talent he is. He could have been in The Matrix. He could have been in The Hunger Games. He could have been in any number of these franchises. And, I hope that Hollywood recognizes that we do need representation in, these larger franchises if we want to expand and bring audiences in. Perfect example, Marvel is going down the tubes. They're not appealing to anyone with these, white superhero tropes. They need representation, and they need smart representation, like folks like Gary Farmer. But anyway, we've gone off the rails. I was a fan of the writer Sherman Alexie for I had grown up in a religious household and knew of Sherman Alexie from books from my church, and about his writing and the way that he could weave politics and jokes so well together to tell such a compelling story about the American experience and make it enjoyable. I knew about him before I watched this film. And, if you've never read, I have heard that Sherman Alexie has become kind of a controversial character over the years. If you know why, feel free to share it with me in the comments. But, whether or not he is or isn't, I think the good that he has done through his writing and bringing people into the indigenous experience and making it a common experience, the common American experience for so many of us, is so important, and I don't think that we can discount that. Now, obviously, I can't speak for anybody else's community, but I can recognize, the good that he has done. Have any of you guys ever read any books by Sherman Alexie? Which ones have you read, and what do you recommend? I was never the same after watching this film. I learned that to be a warrior in this country, to be a man in this country, it didn't mean that I had to be detached from my smile and my feelings and who I was and my own happiness. And I said, that's what I want. I want to be able to walk in my truth. I want to be able to lead other people through the joy that I have, and not have to bow to the pressures of society. And again, I attribute that to Thomas, who was such a quiet and complex character. When he and his grandmother are sitting at the table, and Victor knocks on the door, and they know that it's about going to Arizona, the joy that they share between them was just contagious the first time I saw it, and I just giggled. To see his grandmother be both happy and melancholy for the fact that she was losing her grandson for a while, it resonated with me about the complex nature of life, that beautiful things are often tragic too. Victor learns so much about himself, his place on the reservation, his place in American society, through Thomas's examples, through how he interacts with people out in the wider world, how he is friendly with white people when they're traveling down to Phoenix to learn their stories and to tell them about his, And I grew up with that as something I held on to as an example of how to be, how to bring people into the fold with love and with compassion, and that we are all living the same American experience, What are some of the lessons that you drew from watching Smoke Signals? It's a beautiful and poetic story. It's a story about escape. It's a story about depression. It's a story about the common American experience, And one I'll never forget. Every few years I come on and I do something about Smoke Signals. So anyways, guys, leave this video a like, a comment, and please consider subscribing to my channel, Justin Talks Film, for more episodes of the Long Story Short podcast and more movie and TV related content. I really appreciate you guys for your ongoing support. And until our next conversation, have a great day. Bye-bye.